I would really, really, really hate to have the job of doing marketing of video games right now. I really would. I was terrified when I was ostensibly agent for a lot of the biggest developers in the world, and we saw a few years ago the changes coming to the game business that were unsettling everything. But after thinking about it a little bit, I realized that actually we were unbelievably fortunate to be living in this time. Unbelievably fortunate because we're seeing a sea change in the way that the world perceives our product and the way that they interact with that product. And a lot of people are characterizing this as the sort of the defeat of the old model, the defeat of the console model, the end of a business that it was possible to control or understand, or even to measure in any way. I don't think that that's true. I think something really, really magical is happening. For a long time, when I would give talks like this, I would talk about how games had won. I was really, really proud of this, and I was proud of it probably in part because games sort of selected me almost against my will as a career. The conversation that one has with one's parents when one enters the game business. This conversation, I don't mean to cast aspersions in any way, but this conversation is several orders of magnitude easier today than it was a decade ago. It is several million times easier than it was 2 decades ago. And if you did it in the early 80s, or if you were to go, as Nolan had to his parents and explain that you were going to make these interactive TV things in the 70s, you may have actually been disowned. And there would be no recovery for that. But you know, what that represents is a cultural shift. It represents a shift away from games being an outside phenomenon and not part of legitimate entertainment and not part of legitimate culture, to games being core to legitimate culture. The interface on the Prius is a tablet video game. And the game that you play trying to get the maximum mileage is a video game. And when I drive the Prius that I purchased out of peer pressure from Alex at Harmonix and Tim Schafer at Double Fine, in the same color that they had so that they'd shut the fuck up, I realized that that interface represented the total victory of everything that I held dear. The total victory of games becoming a real lifestyle. And you could buy products that ostensibly have no relationship whatsoever to a video game, and it was a video game, okay? And that's a cultural victory. The thing that makes games so powerful, the thing that makes Congress want to try to control games in a way that they've never been scared of other media before, has scored a very, very subtle victory. And not only have the interfaces in cars and phones and everything else you can think of essentially become video games in themselves, but the very way that people interact with one another enabled by these devices has become a game. And what essentially I think people have been talking about today here is the transformation in a very meta sense of a relationship that used to be very one way in the way that we talk to our consumers and our customer, becoming an interactive conversation. And the fact of the matter is that these principles of game design and of entertainment that we have had to apply in products for a long time, that we've evolved metrics for, that we've evolved disciplines for, we have trade shows about them, have started to become incredibly important in places we weren't looking before. And one of them is right at the core of what you guys do. Everything that people have talked about in these panels, from authenticity, appropriateness, saying the right things to an audience, being real, being honest with your audience, all of those things really have to do with their very core with the fact that consumers expect to be a part of the game now. They don't want to be communicated to. They want to be communicating with you. They don't want to be told how many features a game has. They want to discover that on their own and have a dialogue with you about it and see you change that and see you play with them. And if you play with them, you can do really well.